Hey, Chuckle Crime Nerds. We have stuff to talk about. You may have seen some of my shorts the last little bit about the Banfield case, the au pair, double murder, affair trial, whatever you want to call it. It's Brendan Banfield on trial for offing his wife, and it is a mess. It's crazy. It's a very dark and very complex story. I'm going to do a bit of a nutshell, and then my surprising concern. I didn't expect to be feeling this. And I am concerned. You know what? Let's get into it. If you're new here, I'm Annette Lyon, USA Today bestselling author of the suspense novel Just One More and a whole bunch of other stuff. The Banfield trial. Oh, heavens to frickin' Betsy. Here's the nutshell as simply as I can make it because it's very convoluted. Brendan, the husband, he was a federal agent. He worked for the IRS, but in like a law enforcement type capacity. He had a service weapon. His wife was a nurse, worked crazy hours. They both had kind of these crazy schedules. So they thought this would be good if we had a nanny. They bring in an au pair from Brazil. Her name is Juliana. So an au pair, basically a nanny, you get paid a small amount, but your expenses are covered and you're a live-in and take care of the child. And they had, I believe, a 4-year-old child, a little daughter. But within several months of Juliana arriving, she's, I believe, 21-ish, so pretty young still, she and Brendan begin having an affair. Shocker, right? Although I will say I'm a little surprised that she would fall for him because, I'm sorry, he doesn't look like much. I don't know. He looks like a bored Elon Musk. There's not much there. I don't get it, but to each their own. They have this affair and he decides he can't get divorced. Tale as old as time. The motive is old as time. He decides, I'm not getting divorced. It would be expensive. And I don't want to lose custody of my child. Therefore, the solution, otherwise, get rid of the wife. Because that makes sense and is moral and ethical and won't hurt your child or anything else. What? No. And of course, there's life insurance policies because there always is, right? Again, he's a federal agent. He knows how investigations work. He knows what goes into them. He knows what cops will be looking at. Okay, now this is alleged. This is according to Juliana, the au pair / affair mistress girlfriend. She is the star witness for the prosecution. This is all happening in Virginia, and in Virginia they refer to it as a commonwealth, not a state. So I'm just going to say prosecution because I'm not going to remember to say commonwealth. The prosecution in Virginia. They are relying on Juliana because her testimony is so incredibly damning. The other evidence they have corroborates her testimony, but you know what? We'll get to that. Hold that thought. According to Juliana, he starts going, okay, well, if we're going to plan this, we need to be smart about it. So for one thing, he wants it to happen early in the morning, not like 3 a.m., but like 6 or 7 a.m. And he decides to change his own schedule weeks in advance so that he's conveniently, now he regularly goes to McDonald's for breakfast before work. See, that's a pattern. He didn't just suddenly change his system. So that won't look suspicious at all. The actual deed he decides to frame someone else for. And his brilliant plan is to get onto a BDSM fetish website and pretend he's his wife, make an account under her name, and then try to convince a man out there who's into certain things to come into the house, surprise her, and she will be acting all scared and horrified, but it's all the fantasy. And then he will be acting out the fantasy. Brendan will show up and save the day or try to save the day, but he's too late because this guy who just showed up supposedly already offed his wife, but he was a hero because he killed the man, but he wasn't there fast enough to save his wife. Juliana's like, that was all planned, and we actually made this fetish account on his wife's, Christine's, computer together. They sent messages. I was actually really impressed at how long it took for them, and this just goes to show I'm very much not in the fetish community. I don't know this stuff. They kept running into people that were like, we should meet in person first. Because this sounds like this kind of thing could go wrong. What if your husband just shows up and thinks I'm a bad guy? I mean, and finally they found someone who was unfortunately naive enough to just think this is a fun idea. But they did this all from Christine's laptop while she was home and probably sleeping or in the shower or whatever. Because again, nurse has weird hours, so you're sleeping at weird times. They always did it from her device, so it looked like it was Christine doing it. They also did things like making sure that the door was left unlocked, but they had an automatic system. You have to turn it off, right? So how did it get turned off? They turned it off using Christine's phone. So it looks like Christine did it. And then he was also smart enough to make sure that Christine was always home when they were messing around on her laptop. Just that she was upstairs and disposed, but they were always made sure that Christine was home. And sometimes he would go off to the gym and leave Juliana to do it. And other times he would stay home and send Juliana out to the gym so that the only one consistent person was Christine. So it would look like she's the one doing it and not anybody else. And of course, digital evidence, you can't say who's behind a keyboard, just that this device is accessing these websites. So he was smart enough to do that kind of thing, disturbingly enough. But there are problems in execution because nothing goes exactly as planned ever. He goes off to his McDonald's breakfast. Juliana has instructions to leave the house and also to park her car somewhere else so that the guy who's coming won't see her car and chicken out thinking somebody else is home. So she parks her on the corner. She's supposed to wait till the man goes into the house, and then she's supposed to make a phone call to Christine's phone, which they have put downstairs in the kitchen in a drawer, so Christine won't be waking up from her phone. Juliana calls the phone and supposedly to say, oh my goodness, there's a strange man going in your house. And when she gets a voicemail, she hangs up and calls Brendan, who was hanging out at McDonald's. He went through the drive-thru and then he decides to park and go inside and use the bathroom for like 10 minutes. And I suppose he could argue in court that he has IBS, but he gets a phone call that says, oh, strange man going in your house. Better hurry home. Strange man in your house, you don't call 911. He tells Juliana, go to the house with our 4-year-old daughter, go in the downstairs door. They have like a walkout basement. She goes in that door, waits for Brendan to show up, and they meet up there in the basement. They leave the daughter downstairs. She's a toddler here. You don't know if she's going to follow you up or stay in front of Bluey or whatever you think you're going to do. You can't trust toddlers, but they go upstairs. And sure enough, they catch the bad guy trying to hurt his wife, supposedly. Apparently, Christine did see him and called out Brendan's name and said he has a knife. She was legitimately scared for her life because of the intruder. Because for her, it was an intruder, allegedly. So Brendan takes out his service weapon and he then fires at this other man. His name is Joe Ryan. Ironically, if you follow enough true crime, that's also the name of one of Lori Vallow's ex-husbands who there's questions about. Not related at all, just coincidentally the same name. This guy collapses, and then Juliana says Brendan took the man's knife because he had instructions to bring a pointy knife. And then Brendan proceeds to stab his own wife again and again until it's just way too late. Now, at one point, before he does this to Christine, Christine yells at Juliana, call 911. Now, Juliana was supposed to call 911. That was part of the plan, but not yet. In a panic, she called 911 sooner than she was supposed to, and that's recorded, of course. She calls, and when they answer, then Brendan looks over and is like, no, he does this cut motion, like, hang up. And so she's like, and hangs up. And so he's like, don't call back again until we're ready. And at that point, then Juliana sees Joe moving. And so she then takes the gun that she had that Brendan had provided for her, and she too takes a shot at him, and that then finishes him. So Juliana probably is the one who is responsible for Joe not making it. At some point, Brendan, tells Juliana to go into, I think, the bathroom or the closet. There's a safe. And supposedly the idea is that there'll be evidence that she walked over there to get a handgun that she already had with her. But again, we're trying to make it look like we did things. She had also taken off her shoes and her socks, I think, by that point, or at least her shoes, because then she ends up with blood on her feet or in her socks. It's kind of gross and disturbing. Brendan takes some of Christine's blood and, according to Juliana, kind of splatters it around on took Joe's clothes and stuff. So it looks like he's the one who did the stabbing for Christine. Juliana finally calls 911 for real, and the phone call is very odd. I think Juliana was a little freaked out at this point. She sounds hyped up and really concerned. I've heard it, and I think people would disagree on whether Brendan sounds genuinely distraught. I don't think he does. But that by itself isn't necessarily a red flag, because some people get into like, solve it, fix it mode in a crisis. And he's a federal agent. I can see, a police officer who has responded to these types of scenes remaining calm. But he does say some weird things. Like the first thing out of his mouth, I think just about, is "I'm a federal agent." Why is that relevant at this point? He doesn't say, "Please come, please hurry." And there's weird things like, well, where is the man now? Referring to the intruder, and Brendan isn't paying close enough attention. He's like, "I don't know who he is." They're like, "No, where is he?" "Oh, well, he's right here." Okay, I don't think they meant that. I think they meant like within the space you are in. Is he on the floor? Is he on the bed? Is he next to you? So he's answering weirdly. I don't know. It's odd. Initially, police do take his word for what happened, that he walked in on this intruder hurting his wife, and we just wasn't there soon enough. And it's about a year later that Juliana finally comes clean after she's arrested, and then she's actually given a plea bargain. Well, she'll get a manslaughter charge instead of an M charge, and that would give her the possibility of going home eventually. The prosecution would recommend time served and parole. That doesn't mean the judge would take it. And I can't imagine a judge would actually take that recommendation in this type of case, because it's so heinous. The maximum for her would be 10 years, which means, another 8 or 9, and then maybe even less with good behavior, and then she can go. Then she would be deported back to Brazil, but then she could be with her family. But she takes it. And so, granted, that does make you wonder, how much can we trust her? Because she's saying all of these things to save her own skin. And in court, there were a lot of messages that we saw that she wrote to Brendan and his mother, because they were paying for her and putting money in her commissary so she could buy extra food and contact her parents, her mom back in Brazil, and that kind of thing. And so, of course, she was staying on their side, and she was still believing she was in love with this man. How, I don't understand, and this goes beyond the fact that he's not attractive. You'd think that this kind of trauma would break you apart and open your eyes, but I don't know, I guess not. But eventually, when she turned, of course, the money gets shot up. And she also was afraid, she said, that she wouldn't be able to have any representation, because she knew that Brendan and his mother would cut off the funds. I don't know if she just didn't understand that she would still get a lawyer, a public defender, or if she just didn't trust public defenders, because everyone would like to pay for a lawyer, I imagine. So she spent a day and a half on the stand of the trial, and I watched it all. She came across as very cold and unsympathetic, which, fair, because she's admitting to shooting this guy and ending his life and being part of this entire plot. At the same time, if she's admitting to these horrible things, maybe she is telling the truth. She also comes across as somewhat naive. So I can see an older man who was I think he was 15 years her senior, telling her what to do and making her all these promises and whispering sweet nothings and all the stuff. I tend to think that most of what she said is true. Now, the prosecution's opening statement made it sound like, yes, well, Juliana is our most important witness. She's not the most important evidence. The blood evidence can't lie. The beloved evidence will prove. And I was like, oh, great, awesome. The blood evidence seemed kind of mediocre. To me, it wasn't conclusive. There were investigative problems as well. The cops actually let Brendan wash his hands. He had blood all over them from trying to save his wife, supposedly. Well, who does that? Yeah, that is crime scene 101, folks. Get a freaking clue. Whatever. But there was a lot of problems like that just in the investigation in general. But on the one hand, he did think ahead of your average criminal, thinking ahead to digital evidence and all of that stuff. Give him props on that count. I hate doing that. But as I'm recording this, the state has arrested. And that concerns me. And the defense has started to put forth their case. The defense attorney drives me crazy. Most of my shorts are about him because he's so annoying. My husband heard me just ranting about him more than once and saying, give me Alan Jackson. I mean, Alan Jackson has an ego, but at least the guy, he can command a courtroom and does not sound like an idiot. He can form questions that are solid. He can make excellent arguments. This guy, like, he is just scatterbrained. He can't figure out how the computer works. Like every other exhibit, the judge has to go, is that number 63? Oh yeah, sorry. And I go, oh, this one is in 54. She's like, 55. It's just this constant. And I don't know if he has allergies or he's sick, but he should be taking medication because like every 10 seconds, it's just stuff like that. I'm like, he can tell his mouth is getting dry because he's making these weird sounds with his mouth. And I'm just like, dude, take a drink of water, take some antihistamines. You're driving us all crazy. The concern I have, well, after opening statements, I thought, oh, this will be good. We have the au pair / girlfriend giving her testimony, and then we've got the blood evidence that will lock it down. I am not so certain. Now, I believe, innocent until proven guilty is a part of court. I'm not on the jury. I can have an opinion. I think he did it. I don't know if the prosecution proved it. Because yes, Juliana is evidence. Her testimony is evidence, but it's the only evidence. And the jury can decide how credible that evidence is. So I think back to things like the Daybell cases, both Chad and Lori Vallow, where not only was it verbal testimony from multiple people who could back things up, but then it was like, and then here's the cell phone data that proves or corroborates at least what this witness said. Here is the financial records that corroborates what this witness said. Here's a receipt that corroborates this thing. They didn't have anything to really corroborate. I mean, they had things like security footage from McDonald's to show that, yes, he was there. But there were things like he had them change iCloud accounts and get brand new phones just a couple of weeks before so that their old phones and their old iCloud accounts couldn't be accessed. Could we not have seen those purchases somehow, whether on camera or receipts or bank records to prove that those phones were purchased, or their activation dates? Something like that to show that, yes, what she said is correct. Something like that. I mean, there are so many little things where I thought if you could have had one more bit of solid corroborating evidence for things that she said, that we can go, yeah, that makes sense. Yep. That's what she said. And that shows it. That confirms it. That we don't only have to rely on someone who is an admitted killer and an admitted cheater and an admitted liar in other ways. So yeah, I'm a little worried. Yeah, he probably did it. And he might get off. I really hope there are lesser includeds that he's charged with, so that if the jury says we can't convict on murder 1 because the prosecution hasn't proven that, maybe there's a lower charge included that they could say second degree or manslaughter or something like that. Because I think this man is dangerous and he should not be walking around in society, and he needs to be punished for what I believe he did. I am just, again, very concerned that we don't have the evidence. And the other really frustrating thing is the defense. Here's the thing I've learned from watching as much trial court footage as I have. You need to not just throw everything you have at the wall. The prosecution needed to have more to throw. That's my problem there. But the defense, they're like, there were 73 messages. Let's read them all. And he read through so many of them, or at least portions, with having Juliana read chunks of them. There were so many. It was just exhausting. And then at one point, when it was the defense's turn to give their case in chief, he brings up all the messages again, and the prosecution goes, is he seriously going to read all of them into the record? And the judge says, you can't do that. We don't have time for that. They're already in the record as evidence. But it was just like, you are making everyone fall asleep. You are born. It's the same thing over and over again. So he could have he didn't have to read as many as he did. He spent way too much time just beating a dead horse. Like, all right, what else have you got? Not much, as it seems. He hasn't rested yet, but I don't know. Some people think that Brendan will get on the stand. I doubt it. I think he's an arrogant narcissist, and those are the people who usually do. But I think he's also smart enough to know that increases your chances of conviction. Innocent or not, you get on the stand, you're more likely to be convicted. Also, he just doesn't look innocent to me. I don't know. He keeps looking at the camera. He's like, his eyes just keep going. And it's a little disconcerting. And then he also tries to look sad sometimes. There was a point in opening statements, you could tell he was like pressing his like the palm of his hand into his eyes. and like really hard. I'm like, you're trying to make yourself cry. You're not crying, dude. They played some of the additional body cam footage where you can hear him crying in the background. I will say that sounded more real than some other things that we've seen, but that could have been regret. That could have been panic. That could have been, and it could have been fake. I don't know. But yeah, I am concerned. We shall see what happens. I hope Christine gets her justice. It's been a long time listening to it, especially Mr. Carroll, the defense lawyer. He's very hard to listen to. It's very, very hard. So yeah, my little shorts that I've done have been my way of like, here's kind of what Carol's like, so you don't have to watch all the hours that I did. Oh, it's exhausting. Another fun thing to note, this judge is the same judge who presided over the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. Very different, civil and criminal, completely different cases, but it happened to be in her courtroom. So that was kind of wild to find out. And I really appreciate her in this trial. She seems very even-handed. She seems very confident and fair. Yeah, she makes clear decisions, quick decisions. She's right on top of things. She knows what's going on. She knows what the exhibits are. She's there. She's right on. So I really appreciate her. She's great. Well, let me know what you think about this one. Are you watching it? It's a crazy one. And I say that about so many cases, but there are just the ones that grab my attention are the ones I guess that tend to be on the crazy side. And now here, the sad thing is, not only do we have a mother who is gone and a child who will not have her mother, but this child has now had both parents taken from her for horrible reasons. So, dude, Brendan, way to go to prevent a divorce. I guess you did that part, but you don't have custody of your daughter and never will again, I imagine. So congrats on that. Good job. Gross. He just pisses me off. Let's hope justice is served in this one. Let me know what you think. Thanks for following along. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and share with your friends who are also into true crime, faith, and chocolate. See you next time.